By the time the rescue helicopter landed, the coffee was still warm. That detail would haunt the investigation for years. Not because it was strange, because it was measurable. Coffee cools. People leave traces. Time moves in one direction. Everything investigators found at Outpost 12 suggested that less than an hour had passed since the station had been fully occupied. The problem was simple. Nobody was there. Outpost 12 sat on a frozen coastline nearly 300 miles from the nearest settlement. 8 specialists lived there during the winter rotation. Meteorologists, engineers, communication staff, experienced people selected specifically because they handled isolation better than most. The station had operated for years without incident. Then, over the course of 3 days, something changed. Nobody noticed it at first. The first clue arrived disguised as an ordinary photograph. A technician named Eric Halden stepped outside shortly before sunrise and took a picture of the eastern floodlights. Hours later, while reviewing the image, he noticed a figure standing between them. The shape appeared human. Nothing about it seemed particularly alarming, until he checked the timestamp. The photograph had been taken during breakfast. Security footage showed every member of the crew inside the dining hall at that exact moment. Nobody should have been outside. Eric enlarged the image. The figure remained. He enlarged it again. A second silhouette emerged farther back in the darkness. At first he assumed it was a compression artifact. Then he overlaid the shapes. The room fell silent. The 2 figures were identical, not similar. Identical. The same posture, the same angle of the head, the same position of the shoulders. It looked as though someone had copied a person and placed the duplicate deeper into the snowfield. Nobody could explain it. The image was pinned to a notice board. Life continued. Work continued. Nobody officially reported the incident. But according to recovered notes, people kept returning to the photograph, looking, comparing, checking. One engineer later admitted he stopped sleeping properly after seeing it. Another refused to walk past the eastern windows after sunset. Daniel Voss reacted differently. He became obsessed. Every night he reviewed security footage. Every night he checked the floodlights. Every night he found nothing. Then he found something. Investigators discovered the footage months later. The recording lasted less than 2 minutes. At first glance, the snowfield appeared empty. Then Daniel zoomed in. A figure stood beyond the lights, exactly where the photograph had captured it. Daniel froze the frame. Several seconds passed. Then he advanced the recording by 1 frame. The figure had moved. Not much. Maybe a foot. Maybe less. Daniel advanced another frame. The figure moved again. Investigators later calculated the footage had been captured at 1-second intervals. Whatever stood beyond the lights was approaching the station. 1 second at a time. Daniel continued advancing through the recording. The figure kept moving. Slowly, steadily, always closer. Then Daniel stopped, not because the figure disappeared, because another one appeared, standing beside the first. Identical. Same height, same posture, same proportions. The recording ended before either figure reached the perimeter fence. Daniel watched it 3 times. Then he wrote 4 words in his notebook. "It is copying us." The entry was made less than 24 hours before the disappearance. The following morning, Daniel transmitted a message to the mainland. The recording survives. Most of it is buried beneath static. One section remains clear. Are the lights supposed to move? The operator asked what he meant. Daniel answered immediately. The lights aren't moving. Several seconds passed. Then came the sentence that transformed an equipment problem into something else entirely. It's using them to measure distance. Nobody understood what he meant. The transmission continued. A chair scraped across the floor. A second voice whispered something unintelligible. Daniel spoke again. This time he sounded frightened, not confused, not stressed. Frightened. "It looks like Eric now." Silence. Then the recording ended. Those were the last verified words ever transmitted from Outpost 12. Rescue teams arrived later that afternoon. Everything appeared normal. Power systems operated normally. Heating systems operated normally. Music played softly through speakers in the recreation room. A chess game remained unfinished. Daniel's office light was still on. The station looked occupied. The people were gone. Investigators found Daniel's notebook beside the radio console. The final page contained a single sentence, written so heavily that the pen tore through the paper. Eric says there are 9 of us. Nobody knew what to do with that statement. The station roster listed 8 personnel. The dining hall camera showed 8 personnel. The sleeping quarters contained 8 beds. Everything pointed to 8 people. Daniel had written 9. The search continued for weeks. Aircraft surveyed the coastline. Ground teams crossed miles of frozen terrain. Nothing emerged. No bodies. No equipment. No evidence of an evacuation. No indication that anyone had survived long enough to attempt one. Months later, analysts re-examined the dining hall footage recorded on the morning the first photograph was taken. The goal was simple: verify that all 8 crew members had been present. They succeeded. Then somebody noticed something else. There were 9 reflections visible in the dining hall windows. The footage showed 8 people. The glass showed 9. The discovery triggered another review. Frame by frame, hour by hour, day by day. The result only made matters worse. In multiple recordings, reflections appeared before the people creating them entered the frame. Small inconsistencies. Easy to dismiss individually, difficult to ignore together. The official investigation eventually closed. No explanation satisfied the evidence. No theory accounted for every detail. Years later, Outpost 12 was abandoned permanently. The floodlights no longer work. Snow continues to gather around the buildings every winter. Wind moves through empty corridors. The radio room remains exactly where it always was. So does the desk, where Daniel left his final notes. And according to the last message ever recovered from that station, whatever had been standing beyond the lights was no longer outside. It had already found its way in. The rescue helicopter arrived 7 hours after Daniel's final transmission. The power was on. The music was playing. The coffee was still warm. And if Daniel's notebook was telling the truth, one person left Outpost 12 that day who had never belonged there.